Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
Well, what's going on in Albany? Well, the guy that's been giving us pretty good answers lately is Senator George Borrello from the great county of Chautauqua County, upstate New York. Well, Senator Borrello, give us an update. Does anybody know what's really going on in Albany?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's the million-dollar question right now in Albany. This week we thought we would start to see some budget bills drop, and nothing once again. In fact, after a session on Thursday, we were told by the majority that it looks unlikely that we're even going to have budget bills next week, going into Memorial Day weekend. John, this is the longest we have gone without a budget in almost 20 years now, and the fifth consecutive year in a row under Kathy Hochul that the budget has been late. And this is a real problem. As you and I have discussed in the past, for schools and hospitals and not-for-profits, we have got schools that are going into their budget votes, trying to decide what they're going to put on there, whether they're going to raise taxes or lower taxes, and they can't do that because they don't know what kind of funding they're going to get because there is no state budget. So here we are, 6 weeks and counting without a New York State budget.
Well, some of the hospitals can't pay their bills because they're waiting to be funded. I hope that doesn't create any injuries. Now, the relationship between what happened in, Albany and what's happening in the city, and you're responsible for Albany. Now, what is the actual deal between the city and the state?
Well, you've seen Mayor Mamdani kind of declare victory on his tax on top of a tax with that pied-à-terre tax, but yet that has not been finalized. The governor announced another $4 billion in aid to New York City to help the mayor close this budget gap, and I think at this point there might even be more. So the finances seem to be that Mayor Mamdani is getting a lot of what he wants out of Kathy Hochul and the Democrats because, quite frankly, she needs him and his supporters going into this election. So she's buying her votes $1 billion at a time, and it was from New York City's mayor and his supporters. So that being said, we still don't know what the total budget is going to be. Over about a week and a half ago now, the governor made an announcement, $268 billion. Again, another record-breaking budget. But we really don't know what the final numbers are because we haven't seen those budget bills.
Now, I understand part of that money, they allowed pension funds not to be paid. And they're counting that towards eventually they have to be paid, though.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt that there's a little bit of a financial shell game going on here. Messing with the pensions, looking at certain ways that aid is calculated. So there's no doubt that in that $4 billion is a little bit of accounting magic, if you will. But at the end of the day, there is a huge structural deficit looming in Albany at the state level, and a structural deficit in New York City. So the fact that two entities, the state and the city, both of which are spending far more money than they're taking in, are still somehow thinking that we can do this through some sleight of hand is just very concerning. New Yorkers are voting with their feet. They're leaving in droves, particularly people that pay taxes and employ people. And this is the result. This is a declining game for Kathy Hochul and Zohar Mamdani because they continue to punish the people that are actually paying the bills. They're both good at one thing: killing the golden goose, and that's what we're watching right now.
Is there anybody in Albany that promotes common sense?
Common sense is in rare supply. Myself and my Republican colleagues Absolutely. We are the voice of reason. That's why we're seeing some things that are actually starting to change. They announced that the budget will include a 5-year extender on this damaging and dangerous electric school bus mandate. So an additional 5 years will be in the final budget, we are told. You've seen other things that, like the Climate Act, which the governor is desperately trying to pump some brakes and also extend that out, because as you know, our electricity prices, our energy prices are going up because of poor infrastructure and the lack of investment in infrastructure, because of the fact that the Democrats in Albany, with their radical climate agenda, have told these companies, don't invest here. So they are trying to desperately put together something to provide some kind of relief, but I believe it's only temporary. You know, this is another election year stunt. Extending things out, no, we need to cancel those mandates. We need to repeal the CLCPA. We need to restore common sense, and we need to restore balance in our government. That's the real thing, and that is up to the voters. The voters of New York State, they're the ones that have to come to their senses and vote for common sense over radical idealism.
Senator George Borrello, thank you for the update. And, let's talk again real soon.
Great, thank you.